Good morning. Welcome to LearnBiz, the podcast. I'm Lisa Kay here with you, joined by the lovely Sandy B. Good morning, Sandy B.
Hey, good morning, Lisa.
Hey, all right. So we are here live and in living color, so to speak. Um, Sandy, I'm still riding cloud nine, thinking about our latest and greatest publication, The Entrepreneur Learn Biz Journal. How about that?
Yep, I've been writing every single day in my journal, jotting down a lot of things that are helping me to kind of refocus some energy. So it's definitely a helpful tool. So, guys, you can catch our Learn Biz Entrepreneur Journal on Amazon. It is live right now. We will be sharing some future content on how to complete the journal, different ideas, and sharing some of our entries in our journals. So, look out for that.
Absolutely. Yes, yes, yes. So this is a very great tool for business-minded folks on a day-to-day basis. And having said that, and thank you, Sandy, for directing people on how they can order. You're going to go ahead and kick us off this morning with our question du jour.
So, today we're talking a little bit about naming one thing you can do now to improve your business image. But before we get to that, I want to make sure that if you're watching this video that you are subscribed so that you can catch our next video, and also make sure to like and share this video. It's very helpful to our business image. So to answer today's question, one thing you can do now to improve your business image. For me, so many things come to mind. And I think the most important for me would be to clarify, for those that may not really know what I do, the three major things that I have going on right now. And I think it would be good for me to have some kind of PR type campaign of sorts, to rebrand myself a bit and give people a better visual of what my business is all about. Like, I'm not just doing one thing. I have a law firm. I'm working on this podcast and the business development side here with LearnBiz and LearnBiz the podcast. And I also have a book project that is also leading me to some speaking engagements, and other projects. So that's three completely different things. But I think it creates sometimes some confusion for those who may be potential clients, potential business partners, potential sponsors for different events. So I think providing a visual for your business image that gives clarity is one thing that I can do to improve.
I love that, Sandy. I think that's absolutely great. I think one of the things I can do to improve my business image right away would be to take business cards in hand and reach out within 24 hours to everyone who I've, come in contact with. I think that would be great. And I think people would remember that. And that would put me at top of mind with people to say, wow, she actually followed up. And that's a good sign. And I love to create great first impressions. And that could at least be a great second one.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of little things that we can do and try to create more opportunities for ourselves and give ourselves more exposure. Because I think sometimes we believe that people know what we do. We believe that people know to contact us for certain things. We believe that people are clear on what it is that they can contact us for. And many times that is very, very far from the truth. So, answering this type of question can be a really great tool, to help us really sharpen up some of the things that we're doing. Um, Now, one thing that
You're right.
yeah, sorry. Um, One thing that I think is sometimes missing from this is that if you're not working on your business, this is not
Hmm.
something that you think about at all. Like, you're not thinking about the exterior of the
True.
business. Yeah.
True. And what about those folks who actually have business, but they they still haven't taken the time to hone their image or polish it, and it could be that much more of a great business if they took the time to do that. You might have business, but what if you could double, triple, quadruple your business by really kind of polishing up your image? So you're right. And sometimes we get lost in the shuffle of working in the business that we forget to, like Sandy just said, to work on that business.
And this is where thinking about this whole entrepreneur journaling that we've kind of embarked on, I think it's a helpful thing because it causes you to pause and think and reflect, and go through some mental process instead of just going through the physical day-to-day activity. Um, so, those are things that I think make a world of difference. And if we can just take a moment to give ourselves time on that, you can only imagine how many, lengths we can go in business. But again, this comes with having a very complete picture of what it means to be an entrepreneur. Most people who start businesses don't really understand what entrepreneurship is. And most of that is due to the imagery that is out there. So when you talk about a business image, well, the image of entrepreneurship is far from what it actually is. And so many of us
Yes,
get kind of stuck in the mix because we think, all right, we just have to work, work, work. We have to grind, 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 grind so we can make all this money. But in reality, if you grind without purpose, you're not really going to make any money. You're just going to wear yourself down. So.
absolutely. So yeah, you got everything got to be with a very good intentional purpose, and that's how we should operate in business and in life.
So if you catch the replay of this, I want you to make sure that you answer this question. Name one thing you can do now to improve your business image. And shout out to Doug. Doug always comes in right on time. Good morning, Doug.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for
Yes.
joining
Good
us
morning,
this
Doug.
morning. Truly appreciate you. So Lisa,
Absolutely.
Lisa, I'm going to pass it to you so that we can talk about this quiz that we referenced last time.
Okay, so the last show we were just beginning to touch on a quiz that is kind of an assessment for entrepreneurs that kind of tells you kind of where you should be working in, what kind of environments overall. Now, I don't know if you've taken career type quizzes before, Sandy, but I have, and I've always found them interesting. And I think some of those assessments have been pretty good, and probably most of them I've taken. What's your overall view about these type of career assessments and uh, things like that?
I think it's kind of like a touch and go for me because I feel like sometimes when I'm trying to answer these questions, my mind goes to a place of, well, this is the answer that I should choose versus this is the answer that I need to, that fits what I'm feeling, right? Because sometimes it's kind of like you want to
Hmm.
choose things that fit what direction you want to go. And it just becomes kind of weird because that's not how these things work. Like you're supposed to kind of choose that first instinct. So I think the quizzes are great generally in theory. I just don't think that for everyone, generally speaking, that they're going to give you exactly what you need. Like I caution people not to think that this is just it, right? Like you can't do something different than what the quiz predicts for you. Because we have to take into,
Absolutely.
you have to take into account your personality, things you like, things you don't like. And these quizzes, of course, you're answering questions and you might be leaning in between one or two answers for each of the questions. So imagine if you choose a different answer, what the quiz results will look like versus if you choose this current answer, right? So that's one
Yeah, and
caution I would
even
say.
how I hear you. And then even how you ask questions sometimes makes a difference in terms of how you answer. So for instance, I've taken career quizzes, but I've never taken an entrepreneur quiz. And that's why I thought this was kind of interesting. This is supposed to take about 6 minutes to complete this one. And what it does is it kind of sizes you up as an entrepreneur in terms of like personality. So your personality fit. So it says here, discover your entrepreneur type, the size and kinds of businesses favorable from your personality fit standpoint, along with tips on how to succeed in business. Of course, we're not going to go through the whole thing, but just to go through some of the questions. I am governed first by business interests and only then consider colleagues and their interests. Would that be yes, no, or are you in the middle, somewhat leaning toward yes, no, or uncertain? You see, that's a little weird on in terms of how to answer that one. So, um, I thought that was a very interesting question. What do you think that the answer to that question tells you?
See, those types of questions, to me, there's too much room to go. And maybe in one circumstance I might behave one way, but in another circumstance I might behave a little bit differently. Sometimes I feel like it depends on comfort level. um or sometimes it may depend on whether I really really enjoy the activity that I'm doing, or whether or not it's something I'm doing just because I want to make extra few dollars. So this
So it
question,
depends.
to me, it really depends, because sometimes I'm governed by business interests only, because I will say, for example, in my law practice, um, I'm not trying to worry about what my colleagues are doing or not doing. Like, it doesn't matter to me what they're doing. And I could have 10 colleagues that do exactly the same thing I do. And I firmly believe that I still stand out and they still stand out. We each can have a lane. I'm not a believer in worrying about what other people are doing, because to me it's irrelevant. It
Okay.
doesn't change anything I'm trying to do. But at the
Well,
same
I think your
token,
answer is yes. Your answer should be yes.
well,
Based on everything you just said, it should be yes.
I
That's what
mean,
I think, but you
here's
probably
the
don't see it
problem.
that
But
way.
if this is talking about entrepreneurship in general, I don't know, because it says
Okay.
governed first by business
Yep,
interests, and I don't necessarily
exactly.
think that word first fits for me.
Okay. And then number two says, I prefer to adjust to unfavorable circumstances rather than to change them. Would you be a firm yes, firm no, or are you kind of in the middle?
I prefer to adjust to unfavorable circumstances. See, I don't remember. So let me give a disclaimer right now. I don't remember what my answers were. I did the
Okay.
quiz and I looked at I
I'm
didn't
only
even
going to
bother
do
trying to
the,
marinate. So
yeah, I'm
when
just
I
going to do the
think
first
about,
three, by the way.
okay, I prefer to adjust to unfavorable circumstances rather than to change them. No, I'm not an adjuster. I don't like adjusting. Now, is it a firm no? It might depend. So I would lean towards a no.
Yeah, I think I prefer to try to change circumstances that are unfavorable rather than to adjust to something that is unfavorable. Yeah, all day long, I'm going to try to change that and make it work to the circumstances at hand. Number three, when considering a project, I am more interested in seeing the big picture than the details. Ooh, what kind of person are you? Do you see the forest or do you see the trees?
I see both, so I don't like this question.
I love
I
this
think
question.
you can't just focus on the details, and you can't just focus on the big picture. It makes no sense. Like, you need the details to get to the big picture, and you need the big picture to break down the details. So I don't remember what I chose on this one, but it's definitely one of those tricky ones
Hmm.
that can change.
Yes, and I really appreciated that concept, learning that early in business, like whether you focus on the forest or the trees, because once you understand the concept, like you just said, you realize that you got to really be able to look at both. And so
Yeah,
then, can you see the next screen here?
I can.
Okay, so these are kind of the results for me. It says the scale of business fitting you is large, a large scale of business, business leader, technology, business leader. Then up under that, I guess if it were medium scale businesses, it would be something more like freelancer, innovative manager, artisan. And then if I guess let me see, executive manager or franchisee, and then up under that, if it were a smaller business, it would be more someone in the form of an analyst or a home business. So I just thought overall, it's nothing I could really object to and say, well, oh no, that's not me. But it's just interesting how they use the quizzes to kind of get to that. So I just encourage people to take these type of quizzes every now and then and kind of use it for assessment purposes and see if you agree or not.
So it's interesting. Let me take a look at what my results show because it seems like we may have pretty similar results. For me, it also has me marked as a large scale business. And it looks like some of the same exact things that you have. So it definitely says that if I were to be in a large scale business, there's certain roles that I would immediately fit into. But what sparks my interest is the medium scale and the small scale. Freelancer, facts, like all day long. I would love to be able to just be free and do things that I choose to do in terms of, selecting the type of cases and clients or projects that I want to work on. And then, interestingly enough, also under the small scale, it has a home based business listed,
Mm-hmm.
which for me, I work from home currently. And so that, it already is on point. Now, one of the things that kind of registered in my mind is the fact that ideally, I would love to have a larger scale operation in big picture thoughts. Because I feel like there is something in me that wants to be able to spread the work. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I don't like the idea of the one woman show or one man show. I don't think that that is the best way to accomplish things without burning yourself completely out. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I think having a larger scale business, whether it be medium or large, allows you to break things into components. So you can have somebody dealing with administrative, you can have someone dealing with one technical aspect or another, you can have somebody overseeing, you could have someone dealing with the money, you could have someone dealing with things like intake and new leads and retention. Those are things that I aspire to have, and my goal for 2023, in fact, is I have to scale in some way, shape, or form where there is one aspect of my business that is completely taken out of my physical hands, but allowed for me to be an overseer and somebody who can kind of manage the overall operation of. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm really, really happy about this type of result because it says to me that at least some of my answers led to the right place.
Exactly. And I think I use these tests for more or less like personal reinforcement of, that they're lining up where I want them. Things are lining up where I want them to be, and it's showing in the results. So they have their place. They definitely have their place.
Now, since we're talking today about, looking at our entrepreneurship style and the things that would resonate with us as entrepreneurs, looking at how we can improve our business image, I thought I would share something that I saw yesterday that I thought was pretty interesting. And it was a story about Morehouse College basically launching a virtual class in the metaverse. Now, Lisa, do you know much about the metaverse?
I'm learning more and more, so let me keep listening.
So I can't explain to you what the metaverse is. I can mostly say it reminds me of because I've been in the metaverse per se. Because I have a friend of mine that's really heavily into this stuff, and it's weird to me. This meta world. I've been in the metaverse, and it's just strange. Because it's like you're in it, but you're not in it. So it's you're virtually seeing things in a way, and if you have those special, glasses type, that contraption that they put on their face, it makes it a little bit more real. But just being in it on a surface level is very odd, the way that we may very well interact in the future. And so I wanted to show a little clip here of Morehouse's groundbreaking class in virtual reality that will give you an idea of potentially where college education may be able to go in terms of teaching people about different things in history. So, this class is going to be talking about the topic of slavery. And the scary part is they're going to be going through different aspects of historical events. So I'm going to go ahead and play this and let you guys see it.
And so war is escalated, and so the powers in Europe are escalated.
Now look at what this character here. Do you see this person right here
Mm-hmm.
where they're trying to touch? That's what I was like in the metaverse. I was like, wait a minute, is that like really there? Like, can I
It's so
touch that?
funny.
And I would walk around into these different areas because how it was set up, it's like you can travel to different places and like there are like storefronts and like there are institutions and it's just so weird and you find yourself doing what this character right here is doing.
It's funny.
Look how you walk right through the door. Like, that's crazy.
Turned to Westphalia. The campaign was already beginning to expose serious flaws in Napoleon's plan.
Some sperms get trapped by the cilia and die. Only a few of the original
Imagine the science education. Look at what they're going through right now. This is really
So, like,
great.
you could be standing inside a cell or something and watching
Yes.
blood plasma and, all
Yeah.
kind of learning all kind of science and technology about the body. Virtual reality, exactly, Doug. I love it. And they are using that in real estate, as a matter of fact, Sandy.
Yeah, it's a little, it weirds me out a little bit. It's kind of like the AI realm in terms of artificial intelligence and what these robots are now looking like and interacting like. Like, it's a little too eerie for me. Like, I'm like, are they going to take over the world or oh no.
I love this interactive learning.
to reach the egg cell.
Yep. This is awesome. So these are the types of things that I just feel like, when we think about how our world is changing and the things that we can do to make improvement, look at what Morehouse is doing. Morehouse is taking the helm of technology and bringing it right into the classroom in a way that, funny enough, I would expect them to do, but you oftentimes may not see that. And so this college professor is going to be teaching Black history course in the metaverse. And so this article basically says a new way of teaching will immerse students in history by allowing them to experience historical events. So as an example, having folks on a slave ship. Can you imagine like going through that ordeal in some kind of virtual reality type space? Like, that's really strange. So it says Morehouse College is set to launch first of its kind Black history course. It's going to be taught entirely in the metaverse. Course will open in the spring, be led by Professor Oval Hamilton, and students enrolled in the course will enter the virtual 3D space to experience the lives of enslaved African Americans. And the course is going to be part of their virtual reality project, which will be titled...
Wait. Do you mean to tell me that if Slave Massa pulls out a whip and commences to hitting somebody over the backside, that those students going to be able to feel that pain?
Well, I didn't say all that, but...
Oh, okay. Well, then they're not experiencing anything, but go ahead.
I mean, if that's your interpretation, I don't know. You're going to have to see. Maybe we need to take this course and figure out what's going on. But I think basically they'll be going through some of the imagery in a sense. And the content for this course was inspired by something called Journey for Civil Rights, which is a separate Black history course that this same professor instructed in. And it's going to basically recreate important moments and artifacts beginning with the Haitian Revolution and leading to the Civil Rights Movement. So, this to me is a perfect example of how you can improve your business image by showing, hey, look, we're Morehouse, we're leaning directly into the technology.
This to me is promoting critical race theory on steroids, and I love it.
Yeah, I mean, it's I laugh at this critical race theory storyline because it's not even being used in the context in which it was intended. And then it's being manipulated by some of these lunkheads that want to make it into something that it's not. But it is what it is. This is what people do for a living. So
I know. Can you just one point of digression? Can you imagine that they are actually labeling diversity as radicalism? Isn't that amazing?
I mean, that this is where we are. Unfortunately, this is where we are. We're in a place where people just don't understand, and it's just, it is what it is.
Okay.
But this takes me to some places in history where many times for us, going through the historical context has not been allowed. We haven't had experiences where people really understood what slavery meant, mainly because what did they do? They skimmed over slavery. It wasn't
Yeah.
something that we didn't spend a lot of time. Like I'm trying to think back into my school days of having any conversations about slavery, and I don't remember it. But I do remember very vivid conversations about other major situations in our history where people were killed in mass, people were
Mm-hmm.
tortured, but the same thing didn't apply when it came to anything Black history. It was always like, here it
Well,
goes. All right, keep it moving.
here it goes, and here it went.
Yeah. I mean, meanwhile,
And
everything else is kind of like never forget, always remember. But Black history, anything slavery, we got to keep moving. That was a long time ago.
Like, you people have no history. You have no biblical history. You have no history whatsoever. We're going to wipe everything clean, and you're never supposed to remember again. Well, anyway, thank goodness that it didn't work out that way.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate thing. Nobody wants to address situations that had a drastic impact in our lives, and till this day still have an impact. Now, again, it's not to say that there are not way more opportunities and ample openings for us to be able to do some different things now, but
yes,
it's just a shame. It really is a shame. So I think in general, one thing that I also wanted to touch on when it comes to Morehouse, when you think of the traditional university setting, technology has had a role for many years, but I don't remember at any given time feeling like technology was part of the framework when I was in college. It was something we used to accomplish a goal, but it was never part of the framework. And I look at universities now and I say to myself, we're on social media all the time. We have a lot of things that we do in the social spaces. I wonder how many universities are really leaning into the usage of either social media or even now looking at this whole thing with the metaverse. Let me see what Doug has to say. Doug says CRT, if more than is more than our history. Some people have a problem with the LGBT agenda in fine print that is not being discussed in the mainstream, that is being slipped into CRT. Good grief. I mean, all of these different things that are popping up in our educational systems. It's just interesting to me how people turn things into either an agenda or a let's ban this. We can't talk about it. So it's either an agenda, like we're really pushing it, or we're banning it. There's no in between. And there was a time, to me, it felt like education gave me some room to think. Even though not every professor, of course, cared about certain topics, not every, instructor was going to spend a lot of time on things that might have been important to me or my culture. But there was opportunity, I at least felt. It wasn't like they were trying to ban every darn thing.
Sandy, I had a con law professor in law school that did not want to discuss the civil rights era. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? He wanted to discuss milk truck cases and Washington apples, but he did not want to discuss civil rights era in our country.
Well, I had
political fallout.
Sheesh. I was in, what was I in? I was in an evidence class at the time that the Trayvon Martin case was literally going on. And do you know, my professor did not mention one thing about that case? Not one. And I just kept thinking to myself, we're in law school, we're in evidence, there's a case going on that's presenting evidence. How is it that we're not even remotely touching it? And, granted, of course, sorry, go ahead.
No, because that's when education does not meet reality in all instances, and there are so many opportunities for them to match up and meet up in real time, but people don't want to teach and learn like that sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I could see a reason to not spend a lot of time on it, but to not touch it at all.
Oh,
Granted,
yes.
many times the reason people don't touch it is because they only got a sprinkle of black folks in the class, so you already know some person is going to say something that's going to be offensive, because people have these things in their minds, and these are the same people that are going to become lawyers and prosecutors and defense attorneys and judges. But why not explore at least the evidence issues? We don't have to get into the social issues. We don't have to get into things that may stir up, controversial conversation. But can we get into the evidence?
I'm
That
telling you.
was really, really, it was a left field for me. I'm sorry, you're going to say something, Lisa?
So no, I see Doug says here, we're in the fourth wave industrial revolution. Why push a subject that you will not use outside of the academia when our children are reading on a third grade level instead of incorporating more STEM studies? Wow, Doug, you're getting deep here. You're getting deep, Doug. That's all I can say there. When you start talking STEM, I think this is getting deep.
I think what you're touching on is this concept of agenda or ban. There's nothing in between. So to think the fact that we are behind the mark when it comes to education in these areas, to think that we are behind the mark when it comes to accomplishing levels of efficiency in our society, and to think that we're still dealing with the most foundational issues, even with the level of technology that we have, it speaks volumes. And we do spend a lot of time just marinating on things that have nothing to do with our growth. To me, there are things that can be kept on a personal level that don't need to infuse every aspect of our days and nights. But unfortunately, this is where we are. And I'm going to add it to, as an example, in the social media space, there are so many conversations that happen, but they're surface conversations. So I spend some time at times on Clubhouse or on YouTube and listening to people talk. And most of the time, people are being pitted against each other. The topics that are being discussed are being focused on in a gossipy manner. And we never really get to any resolve. So it's like you'll get these debates going all day, all night, all day, but there's never a resolve. Why is that? There's a lot of agendas circulated. There's a lot of, focus on nonsense. Why is that? Why are we still dealing with certain issues?
It's the dumbing down of America. It's been happening for a long time. And it's just meant to make us complacent and just really just talk about what's going on and not really be proactive or active. But as we see around the world, people are active, and people do protest when things get tough for people. So at any rate, I know we're digressing some, so we'll try to turn back this ship a little bit by asking the question, what can you do out there as an entrepreneur to improve your business image? Name that one thing that you can do right away to improve your image, because we all have an image, and whether we want one or not, it was probably going to be good, bad, or not good at all. So definitely we can improve it. We like to talk about the real world on this show because the real world affects us in business. And this article that Sandy just brought up about how college kids are starting to learn interactively through IT, it just brought up a topic about, critical race, because they're going to be teaching race and right, race history using that technology.
No, they're actually going to be teaching specifically about African American history and slavery, which is, I think, the distinction between people talking about critical race theory versus actually just teaching the history. People make it into like this is some invented thing or something that's meant to cause harm. But in reality, it's simply doing what we failed to do in our school systems growing up, which is actually teach people what happened. Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Lisa?
Yes.
I hear an airplane.
Yes, you do. I do
Oh,
too.
oh, sorry. I wasn't sure if it was coming from the broadcast. Okay, so one of the things is considering the fact that when we have these conversations about these different topics, in order for us to be able to tackle the issue, we have to be able to distinguish between what it is and what it isn't. And I think one of the downfalls of critical race theory in terms of pushing the information has been people don't understand what it is. It's being defined by people who are trying to create something that is not. But to talk about this improving the business image, one of the things that I think is important is also recognizing that sometimes we have to shake up the industries that we're in. I was listening to I was in a meeting yesterday that was talking about professionalism and ethics here in the state of Florida. And I kept thinking about, my business and the way that I interact with other colleagues and the way that my business image has been framed since I've been practicing law. And one of the things that I recognized over time was that, when I listened to these folks talking about professionalism and ethics and they're defining things, and there was issues with the word zealous and zeal and how people are actually acting out and then using the word zeal and zealous as their excuse, saying that they're representing the best interest of their client. Instead, what they're doing is creating an image of themselves and their business, and they are basically being bad, misbehaving, being disrespectful, and then trying to cloak that in something else. I'm sorry, I got to go back to the critical race theory. They're doing the same thing with that concept.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
what they're doing is they're taking something that was intended for a specific context. And if I'm not mistaken, it came from the legal realm. That's where critical race theory came from. It was something that had to do with the law and its application in the system and the way it impacts us in the system. And what they've now turned it into is, oh, well, basically, this is a way to make these people feel bad and a way to chastise these people and a way to create problems with these people, which is completely false. So in much of the same way that when we talk about business image, we want to create an image that suits us. Unfortunately, the issues that we interact with in business are also the same way. Our business image impacts those issues. And let me touch on what Doug has here. He says, critical race theory, that title itself sounds like an agenda. History are based off of facts. Where does the theory come in? Too subjective instead of fact-based. Too much for public schools. And that's where the whole thing went left field, Doug, is instead of them understanding that this came from somewhere and it was a theory that had to do with what was going on legally speaking, and it was something that would have been put into the system in terms of the school system in a way to educate at a greater level, but instead they twisted and turned it into some other agenda. So no worries, Doug. We're still on subject because critical race theory is a perfect example of how an image of something is transformed into something else. And unfortunately, our job in business is to make sure that we don't allow others to transform our image. We're the ones responsible for creating our image. We're the ones responsible for crafting our image.
I will say this, speaking of image and staying with the image thing. Now, you remember there was a time when folks would come into certain corporations and try to help with the overall image by educating people within corporations. And there was a great resistance to people wanting to learn more about diversity and inclusion and all of those things. So I think it's that resistance to that greater image and diversity and all that led to some of these more cynical things like critical race theory. And I'm gonna leave it alone because some people they don't want those images that are wholesome and clean for everybody.
I think the word that I would like to use instead of resistance is the entitlement, the selfishness, the inability to see beyond oneself. Because when I think back to the early days in my experiences of, diversity and inclusion, and we're trying to be encompassing of different cultural groups, one of the missing pieces was the fact that they didn't have no darn cultural groups. They would always have like one person, two people. It was almost like, we always would use the word token, right? To refer to the one Black person, the one Asian person, the one Hispanic person. It's like, if you're going to talk diversity and inclusion, and you want to create a business image of being able to incorporate different groups and different ideas, don't you think you first have to have some different groups and ideas at the table first?
Well, or even have the mindset to be receptive to receive. So if you haven't had that history, but you're trying to train your mindset to be such that you're more open and diverse, and not just single-mindedness of race and people who look like me and I'm comfortable with, and that's all I know and want. So if you're trying to get away from that, I mean, you got to at least start with changing the mindset. But there's been such a resistance, and that's why I use the word resistance, because there are truly people who don't want that.
Oh yeah, I meet those people on a regular basis, and that's why I always make myself present. So, but also to add, as I was talking about this whole thing with the professionalism and ethics and things like that, and I was thinking about my business and some of the things that I've engaged with and dealt with, and I was like, another way to improve my business image is to continue to push the envelope, because a lot of times people look at us as, the Black business owner, right? And it's kind of like it's a tag, Black business. Well, I'm a business, right? I'm not just a Black business. Now, I like to self-identify as a Black business because I think it's important for us to create room for us to be seen. But I also don't feel like that's the end all label, right? I'm an entrepreneur first. I'm a business owner first. Now, if we want to add some categories to it, I may add Black. If we want to add some more specificity to it, I may add Haitian. Because culturally speaking,
what are the benefits though? What are the benefits to having the image of as a Black business? Are there benefits to that image, or standing yourself out or holding yourself out as a Black owned business?
I think if we as Black people are truly trying to support our community, which I hear all the time, but I think is the most fraudulent phrase, if we're really trying to support our community, then we have to be able to identify who we are. And unfortunately, the only way that you can really do that in many ways is to add the label. Now, the opposite way of doing it would be including the imagery. Now, here's the problem. When I started practicing, I remember very blatantly people who look like me saying, do not include your face on anything. Do not put Black faces on your website. Do not put Black faces on your published materials. Do not allow Black faces to exist.
Do not name your restaurant Shaquisha's Deli, because people are gonna know you Black.
Look, and it was just like all of these things. And then I started to think to myself, where does that come from? And, this comment that Doug is making right now, he says, that's more of an us thing. We put more emphasis on Black business than other cultures. And that's very true, Doug. I think in some ways it can be a help to us if we're trying to self-identify for a purpose, right? Maybe we're doing some kind of thing and the focus is on us. But the problem is when this focus on us crosses over, because then we can't be like the other businesses. It's like, oh, that's a Black business.
Well, to me, it's when you say Black owned business, you're just basically saying miracle baby, because you are swimming upstream, and you are swimming 20 times against the odds as your counterparts. So to me, it's almost a pride thing. Like, hey, I'm still out here. My head is still above water. And, I want someone to know that that's something that counts for something out here in business.
I would give a slight pushback, and I'm going to lean in on something that Doug is saying here. I think sometimes we get in our own way and we create this thing of, we are going upstream to a degree, right? But technology has been a great equalizer in the sense of exposure and access,
That's
right?
true.
So
Yes.
I can say systematically, institution-wise, yes, we're definitely swimming upstream. But do we have access? We absolutely have access right now. Very different than I could say about 10, maybe more like 20 years ago. We have a greater level of access. You have folks coming out right now with product direct to consumer, with music direct to consumer, with information direct to consumer, with content direct to consumer. So you no longer have to feel this restriction of, I must go this route in order to get to the promised land. You now have the capability of saying, all right, I can do A, B, and C without any pushback. Now, are you going to receive some issue in other ways? Absolutely. Building capital is one major one. Access to capital is a major one. Being able to have the same level of resources can be a major one, because again, those things may be tied to capital. Human capital is a major one. So I think in some ways we kind of stunt ourselves slightly when we just want to label ourselves. But I also feel like, unfortunately, we're still in a place where we need the label. So it's a very, very tricky line I feel like we're on.
Not to mention that some people might identify out of pride as being a Black-owned business,
Right.
but also a lot of people are specifically looking to deal with Black-owned businesses only. There are certain people that have the mentality that I want to help the group that has basically been held down and oppressed the longest and help them and that group. And there are certain people who seek that out, and it's not racial or anything like that. As well, maybe it is racial, but whatever it is, it's about helping those that have been oppressed. So I think there's great reasons to identify as Black owned, but everybody has to figure it out for themselves. And I personally have identified as a Black owned business and have no problem holding myself out as such.
Yeah, I do so sometimes. I also find some pleasure as well in just being like everybody else. You know what I mean? And I think sometimes what I've learned to do recently is really lean in on the fact that I'm not separate and distinct from the crowd. And sometimes I'm made to feel that way in business, especially when I go to, like, meetings and trainings and things like that. It's like sometimes I look around and I'm like, sometimes people look at us in a certain way. And I'll never forget an experience that I had with a client that had never seen me. And clearly they hadn't gone to our website, because if they had gone to our website, they would have seen two little Black girls. So they hadn't met me before. So they were meeting me for the first time for a hearing. And I was traveling to this hearing. It was north of us. And I got to the hearing, and I swear to you, my partner and I walked up, and this whole family looked like they had done saw two ghosts walk up to them.
Mm-hmm.
They were looking at us like, ooh, y'all are Black? How did we not catch that in our many phone conversations? And I was just like, maybe because there's not a sound to Blackness. When you really think, there's not a sound. Now, are there people that, culturally speaking, we tend to want to associate with a sound? Yes, of course. We always have that.
Mm-hmm.
But there's not a sound to Blackness. So when you spoke to me on the phone, you spoke to me on the phone. And I've always spoken in the same way. So if you believe that that is some indication, it's just weird to me. And so I don't necessarily have like Black owned, every I used to do that early on in some contexts. But over time, I've just leaned in on, I'm a Florida state planner. I'm a Florida author. On occasion, I add the extras because it may be due to the environment that I'm in. Like if I'm at some kind of a, exposition type thing and they're looking for diverse groups, obviously they're gonna, but people, like Doug said, people are gonna know.
Once you put your picture out there, you don't even have to say it anymore.
Yeah, Doug says he's not going to be focusing on Black owned when it comes to himself. I want everyone's money. People will know it's Black owned when they see me. And that's the thing.
That's it.
when they see you, you'll know whether or not they want your business for real or whether or not they were trying to get business in a certain way. And trust and believe, it's no doubt that they'll let you know. I've lost a couple of potential leads because I could tell they literally wanted something opposite of me.
So let me ask you this. How does this slogan sound? Hi, buy all of your products from me. I'm a Black-owned business.
I don't care for it. I just say buy all your products from me because
it doesn't appeal to you, right? It doesn't.
I mean, it doesn't
matter in that sense. It doesn't give you anything in that sense. So I agree with you in that sense. It's about value. What do you bring? And it's not about skin color. If you're selling a product, it's about the product. That's the focus. I agree with that. And I don't think, which means to me that ultimately the whole I'm a Black-owned business doesn't necessarily, I don't know that always sells your products, but I do know that there are people who look to do business with Black-owned businesses. So I don't know. I guess people have to figure that out, the dynamics of all that for themselves.
I mean, one of the things with your business image is understanding who your people are. And if your product or service can be geared at a large population of folks, focusing on Black may be helpful to you, but sometimes it may hurt you too. You may be losing other business if that's your only focus. But also considering the industry that you're in, it may not even be necessary for you to be focused in that way. Now, in my industry, when it comes to estate planning, it's been helpful to me to be identified as a Black attorney, to be identified as a Haitian attorney, to be identified as a Black woman or a Haitian woman, or, it's been helpful to me because there are instances where people are laser focused on what they're looking for. But at the same token, it's not like my marketing says those things in a sense. It's more so people know who I am and I'm getting those leads because of who I am.
Mm-hmm.
So I think sometimes when we talk about things that you can do to improve your business image, it's getting to know people. It's doing the things that Lisa was talking about at the beginning, which is getting your information out there.
Yep.
Circulating, connecting with people, and then people get to know who you are.
Yep. Keeping your name and image top of mind with people. When someone thinks, oh, I need to contact a realtor, a real estate advisor. Gosh, wouldn't it be great if your name always, or in this case, my name always comes up as, one of 3 people that they always think of whenever someone thinks of realtors, whenever someone thinks of estate planning attorneys. Sandy Boisrond's name is always one or 2 attorneys that always top of mind. That is more powerful in business than anything.
Yeah, that's facts. And Doug says it all, and it depends on the type of business and the target demographics. All of those play a factor. Sometimes you may be in an industry where it is specific to Black people. As an example, the young lady that has the company called the Lip Bar, the other one, the Crayon Case, they target a variety of women of color, particularly Fenty Beauty. Even though I think her target seems to be women of color, I think she has shades for all colors. So it's you can get the spectrum, but she may get more from a particular group, but she's not targeting one group. And I don't know if you noticed that, but Rihanna does a lot of things like with Savage X Fenty, where you'll see her bring in women and men of different backgrounds. So her business is not a Black business per se. It is a business. And she
promotes a lot of diversity. A lot. Yeah, she promotes diversity. And the thing is, people need to understand that there is money in diversity. It's just that in America for so long, diversity has been shut out, especially with people of color like us, that folks, they don't know that it's okay to do business with us, that, it's safe to do business with us. And relationships matter, so that's how trust is built. So we do have to teach people that there is money, that there is greatness, that there is success in diversity. And I think that's our jobs as Black entrepreneurs every day of the week.
Yes, ma'am.
We got to teach people We have to teach them because we want everybody's business. We're not like Doug said, like you are also say it's not just going after a certain category of dollar. We want money's green. We want everybody's money. So, but we have to teach people, and I think it's one of the things that we have to constantly do. It's been a good show. We've been around the world with this topic though today, Sandy.
I mean, I think all of these aspects are an important piece of what we feel when it comes to business image. It's dissecting, it's really analyzing, it's creating the imagery that we want. And it's also recognizing that we don't have to fall into the fold. As an example, Doug says, look, I'm not doing that Black owned stuff. I'm a business. That's it. And I'm not mad at him. I think that that's a good idea because at the end of all days, if we want equality, if we want things to be streamlined where we all get a shine, then why do I have to be labeled in order for you to recognize me? I can be labeled, I can be present within the fold and still be acknowledged. So guys, definitely appreciate
let me
one
take it one I'm sorry, one last comment on this. This is my final one, I promise. You know what? I actually think there are some Black folks that actually get offended when you tout I'm a Black owned business. They don't want to hear that. That is not, like Doug is saying, it's not important to them. I think there are some people who actually get offended if that's the first thing you're going to tout over your services and your skills and qualifications. So that's all I wanted to say about that one. Okay, back to the LearnBiz Entrepreneur Journal.
No, I mean, I agree with you, Lisa. And in all honesty, there are some people that actually don't want to do business with Black owned. I remember having a consult with somebody a while back, and I could tell that the questions that they were asking me were because I was a Black owned business. That's why. They weren't asking me these questions because they would legitimately ask that of any attorney. They were asking questions of me, like questioning my skills and ability. Mm-hmm. And it was just like, okay, I see you do business without, because this is somebody that, you know, I've seen in the mix, and I realized who they do business with. And I was like, oh, that's why you're asking me the questions, because you wouldn't have asked that question of anybody else. Doug says, bingo, Lisa.
Bingo. That's it.
You got
that's it. Like that, like ba, 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 da, da. That's it. That's it.
Lord have mercy, George. Look what you did, Doug. Look what you gave her. So in closing, we definitely want to shout out to our LearnBiz Entrepreneur Journal. Lisa and I have been journaling for literally now. Has it been 7 days yet? I think today would make the 7th day.
Yeah, it's been about a week for me.
We've been really keeping connected with our thoughts and ideas in this journal. I'm going to make sure that we update the links because I think some of our videos are, actually a good handful of our videos are missing links. So I got to go back through. Lisa and I are going to be working on that. But, you know, you can check this out on Amazon. It is live and ready to go. You can join us in our journaling process. It's 365 days of journaling, a great way for you to hold yourself accountable. And Doug was laughing at Lisa with her pop. But thank you guys so much. Please like, subscribe, comment, share. Check us out on Amazon. Check us out on Instagram at B is for Biz. We're looking forward to sharing a lot more with you guys really soon.
Absolutely. Have a great one.
Have a great one.